As people who work in this industry, we're so deeply ingrained in all of these topics and we know them like the back of our hand, but a lot of people don't. Everybody's body is different and pleasure is not a one size fits all situation. And so I think keep in mind that, even though we are experts, a lot of the people that we're talking to really aren't. And so you kind of have to go back to basics and then you can really guide people once they have a solid foundation of what exactly pleasure even is and what they might not even know that they're looking for.
We are just going to jump right in, and I want to know, what is one common mistake professionals make when talking about pleasure products, and how can they shift their language to build more trust?
I would say not knowing their audience. I think it is really important to know who you're talking to. For example, if you are engaging with a women's media outlet, but you're focusing on prostate-focused products, it might not be the best fit for that publication. So I think it's really important to know who you're talking to and what they're looking for. And a really easy way to do that is just by reading what they write about.
Yeah, definitely. And so your area of expertise is engaging with the media. So what is your number one tip for sexual health professionals who want to engage with the media?
I would say know who you are and know what you have to offer. There are so many people in this industry, and in order to stand out, you really have to have your bases completely covered, know exactly what you're talking about, and have a really thorough and meaningful connection to what you're saying. So, for example, if you want to start talking about kink, you should know about all of the different kinks that people might be interested in. So I think that would be my biggest tip.
Yes, that is a great tip. I love it. So from your PR perspective, what messaging and approaches can help professionals talk about toys and tools in a way that's educational or clinical, but also approachable to the general public?
Absolutely. I think even though we've come so far in destigmatizing pleasure, you still really have to meet people where they are. There are still people that are going to wince when they hear the word clitoris, or they, might not have even had an orgasm for themselves. So I think remembering that as people who work in this industry, we're so deeply ingrained in all of these topics and we know them like the back of our hand, but a lot of people don't. So I think really breaking things down to a simple level and also making people understand too that everybody's body is different and pleasure is not a one size fits all situation, because people are reading these articles looking for guidance. People are embarrassed to ask their friends these questions, so that's why they're turning to the media to learn, like, oh, I've never orgasmed before, how do I do that? Or, oh, I've never purchased a vibrator before, what should I look for? And so I think keep in mind that, even though we are experts, a lot of the people that we're talking to really aren't. And so you kind of have to go back to basics and then you can really guide people once they have a solid foundation of what exactly pleasure even is and what they might not even know that they're looking for.
Yes. Oh, that's great advice. So, as sexual health professionals, we often struggle with media visibility because of censorship or advertising restrictions. So, how does Lovehoney navigate these barriers? And what lessons can our professionals take away from your approach? And how can they get more visibility on their work?
One really simple tip would be start by thinking about relationships as opposed to just hopping straight into sex. With publications, with social media, it's super easy to get shadow banned. For example, our Instagram actually is shut down at the moment because of Meta. And so when we are working with influencers, we're actually not even allowed to show products anymore. Everything that we're doing is so brand awareness focused. So I think one thing that is really good to be aware of is that it needs to be a little more vanilla than you might actually anticipate, which is tricky considering the nature of our industry. But I think keeping in mind sort of coming from this wellness relationship, any sort of vanilla angle first is a really good way to break in there and help navigate some of those issues with censorship.
Absolutely. Do you find there's certain types of media, because media is such a broad term, are there certain types of media that have higher levels of censorship and some that have lower levels of censorship?
So what we've found is the publications either will or they won't cover sex toys or excuse me, sex toys. So for example, there is a whole house of publications that works with a few notable media brands that won't write about us at all. So we just typically don't engage with them because they're just simply not willing to cover toys. So it's really either yes or no, which we have found to be an interesting challenge because it's changing constantly. Google is constantly changing their restrictions, shadow banning websites, affecting their SEO. So I think it really just depends on the outlet and it's constantly evolving. These changes are happening all the time.
Yes, that's one thing I've noticed too. You just have to keep learning and you have to stay on top of things because it is changing all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, for someone who wants to get started selling toys, what should their first step be? Like, how can professionals collaborate with brands like Lovehoney to expand their reach and impact their communities in positive ways?
Absolutely. So I think in terms of wanting to create your own product or coming up with something really specific, it really needs to be new and it needs to be innovative. For Lovehoney in particular, we have a huge research and development team. So there are dedicated people to figuring out those sorts of things. But if you can figure out a need or a niche or something that people want, but we might not know that that's what people want. I think coming with these proof points, coming with data, coming with testimonials as to why you think this is something that people like a brand should pick up, then I think that's a really solid way to open that door.
Definitely. And I want to talk to you about like being an affiliate with a company like Lovehoney. So what are some of the benefits of like being an affiliate and how does someone start doing that?
Absolutely. So a lot of brands are typically pretty open to having influencers and therefore educators become affiliate partners. And the way that that typically works is you can either reach out to someone with the brand, reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, say, I'm interested in becoming an affiliate with you. And then the way that will work is they will give you a discount code. So say, for example, mine would be Emmy 20. So anybody who used that on Lovehoney would get 20% off, but then I would also get a portion of the sales as well. So it's a win-win because we're selling products, but then you're also getting a kickback from it. And then the more that you're able to sell, there's likelihood for that percentage to increase or doing a special during a sale or something like that. So really with affiliates, it's great because it's an easier way to break in because we don't necessarily have to pay you. You get paid by us making sales. So it really is the ultimate win-win.
Oh, I love that. And do you all have certain requirements for your affiliates? Like, do you have to really make it big on social and have like millions of followers, or is it a little more flexible, or what are some of those requirements like?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely more flexible. We work with a roster of sex educators right now, some of which have over 200,000 followers. One of them only has 10. So it really 10,000 followers. So it really doesn't matter how big your audience is. What I would say does matter is how engaged your audience is.
Absolutely. I love that. So I want to ask you about credibility. So I think one of the keys to getting media attention is to build your credibility. So what are some ways that people can build their credibility as a sexual health professional?
Absolutely. So what we've found recently is that there are more and more people pretending to be sex educators, people who, I've had a lot of sex, so therefore I am qualified to speak on the matter. And while I'm sure some of their opinions are very valid, they are not trained. They don't have that clinical information that is imperative when you're talking about people's bodies, people's health. And so one thing that we've found is having those credits, like for example, being ASECT certified, having a PhD, having some sort of credibility beyond just your personal experience is imperative these days for that credibility.
Stay tuned till the end of this video where Emmy tells us the wildest piece of advice about sex that she's ever received. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. Absolutely. I completely agree. And, we see a lot of people in our program that start out like they're the person who knows a lot about sex and they're like, okay, I know a lot about this. People are always coming to me, but I want credibility. I want a certification. So that's why a lot of our students come to us and get SHA certified, SHA certified, because it really does help to have that credibility behind your name and your knowledge and expertise.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have some publications that we work with that if you don't have that, they won't even engage.
Mm. Yep. Well, that is great advice. I would like to talk to you a little bit about your job. So your job is head of PR for Lovehoney Group. So tell me, what are some of your favorite things about your job?
Oh, wow. Well, it's definitely never boring. It's funny that you mentioned there are those people who know a lot about sex and then they actually start working in it and they're like, wow, I really do have a lot to learn. And that's sort of how this role was for me. My friend actually suggested me for this job because she's like, you're very sex positive, you'd be a great fit. But then once I started working here, there were so many things that I realized I didn't even know about pleasure. And so I've really learned a lot about anatomy, pleasure, all of these different things that I really, or for example, communication is one of the most important things for good sex. Just all of these different things that I've learned, basically taking all of that and trying to find ways to convey that to press in a way that is interesting. So a big part of my job is not only promoting our new products, but also trying to tell these stories about what makes a good sex life. And then we organically weave in our products that way. So it's really not just about the sex toys themselves. It's really about guiding people to have a more fulfilled sex life. Because if you think about it, if you're having issues with your partner, that might be something you Google, like, how do I reignite the spark? Or how do I ask about sex toys with my partner? And so we'll try to reverse engineer it and think of a way like, well, what would a consumer want to know? And that's probably something media will want to write about. So it's really trying to approach it from all different angles to figure out all the different ways that we can incorporate sex toys into people's lives. And beyond that, it also expands into health as well. One of our brands, Womanizer, which is known for the pleasure air technology and the clitoral stimulators, we do a lot of work with women's health research. We actually did a big survey about menopause and masturbation last year. And so that gives us an opportunity to not only talk about, masturbation and toys through the lens of pleasure, but also through the lens of overall wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and that was such a fascinating study because Womanizer partnered up with the Kinsey Institute and then presented at our event this past January of 2025, all about menopause. And it was so interesting. Which brings me to my next point. At Sexual Health Alliance, we do these like monthly educational events. So we bring in experts in the field on all different topics. So experts like Emmy. Emmy is going to be talking at one of our upcoming events. And this event that she's going to be talking at is our annual business summit. So this is my last question for you, and it's my fun question that I've been asking all of my recent guests. So what is the wildest piece of advice on or relationships you've ever gotten, and did it work? Like, was it good wild or was it bad wild?
It's funny that you asked that just because, and I feel like this is such a boring answer, but because the people that we work with are so qualified and have so much knowledge about the space, every single piece of knowledge that I've gotten just from working with these people has been incredibly effective. For example, learning about, like I mentioned, communication is so paramount to having good sex. And I think learning that has not only made it easier to do my work, but also, quite frankly, improved my personal life as well. So I think that is one, I wouldn't say that's wild, but I would say the wildest thing that has happened to me during this role is that like I said, I learned a lot. I had no idea. I thought blue balls were an actual thing that happened. Like, I actually thought that men would explode if they did not ejaculate. So there's a lot to learn, because it's very clear that even when you're a positive person, you might not, oh my God, sorry. Um, you might not
Love
know as
it.
much as you think you do. That's Rosie. She loves to learn.
Rosie is positive also and wants to be a part of the interview, and I love it.
Yes, sorry about that.
No worries. Well, I think that's great. That's good, wild. I love it. And that's why we're always learning. We're always learning new things. And that's why Education is so important. There's so many things we just assume are true or assume are a certain way, and we don't know until we know. So it's important to get all the information out there.
Absolutely. And I think that's why, educating people about the benefits of masturbation, teaching them about sex toys, it's so important because especially, as women, what we're taught is that we're sort of just a vehicle for male pleasure. And, the goal is to service men and for them to get to the finish line. But in reality, it's about you too. And I think in this work, that is something that is really gratifying because women deserve pleasure just as much as anybody else. And it's time to reshape these conversations to not about just getting to the finish line, but to really enjoying yourself and taking a moment for yourself and making it about you and not always your partner.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for being with us today, Emmy. If you're interested in learning more, check out our Sexual Health Alliance events. Like I mentioned, we do these online learning events every month. Check out our events calendar at sexualhealthalliance.com. And thanks again, Emmy. Thanks for watching our video with Emmy. Do us a favor, share this with someone who might benefit from this information. Your support helps us reach more people with important sexual health information. If you're passionate about this space, we know you'll enjoy these videos, so check them out. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel. And remember, you are exceptional.